So welcome back to my YouTube channel. Really do appreciate everybody's response to my videos so far and how well they've gone over the last few days. I'm honestly really happy with, the uptake that they've had. So the other day on my Instagram story, I posted a question box where I was putting it out to you guys to ask me as many questions about literally anything and everything about me, about what it is that I do, and I'm going to try and get through them as much as I possibly can. So I've got about 20 odd questions to get through. The response was honestly incredible. I had about 40 odd questions asked. I'm not going to go through and answer all of them because otherwise we'll be sat here for the next couple of days answering questions. So the first one I've got is, what made you start the gym? So one thing that made me start was back in 2017 when I very first looked at myself. I say very first looked at myself when I looked in the mirror one day and I wasn't particularly happy with what I saw, and I knew that something had to change. Since 2017, I spent 2 years dropping body fat, going to the gym, training, no real direction as such, and I managed to drop about 25 kilos over that period of time. So for a starting point, it was absolutely fantastic. Over that sort of time as well, I went through a breakup and that sort of thing, and then I saw a coach that was advertising he wanted to take on clients to prep for shows, and then that's kind of where the obsession set in terms of going to the gym, in terms of competitive bodybuilding, and that's where it's kind of led me up to now, where I'm trying to be sort of more competitive as the years go on, and even sort of like trying to improve my knowledge and that sort of thing. So that was the main thing that started it, literally having a poor body image and not feeling particularly great in myself, how I felt, how I looked and that sort of thing. So the next one, and this is actually quite a good question, I've come prepared, I've actually written down the answers for this one. So what's your current food split, training day and non-training day? So currently on a training day, I'm at 2,735 calories, which is made up of 283 grams of protein, 284 grams of carbs and 53 grams of fat. On a rest day, 2,521 calories a day, which is 277 grams of protein, 216 grams of carbs and 59 grams of fat. Obviously this is coming out on a Sunday, so it means you won't necessarily see my high days or anything like that, but on Thursday and Friday I've got 2 high days back to back, and that consists of 3,668 calories, 176 grams of protein, 593 grams of carbs and 66 grams of fat. Obviously the high days is there to flush out any fatigue, freshens you up, restores the glycogen in your muscle, fills you out a little bit more, brings the look back to life, because the whole emphasis around bodybuilding prep is the fact that you've got to get flat to get in shape. It's not necessarily the case you'll be able to stay in shape all the way through. The flatness has to come. When I say flat, it's where your muscles look depleted. When you're flexing, you're posing, that sort of thing, you're not necessarily going to get any response, see any lines or anything like that. As soon as all these carbs go back in, again, as I say, it even contributes down to sleep, increased training performance, gets rid of fatigue. It's very fucking nice eating a lot of food as well. So that's the premise on that. So the next one I have, if you could train with a current Olympia winner, who would it be and why? So it's actually quite difficult for me to whittle this down and choose just one. For the sake of this one, as I'm going into men's physique, the one person that I would love to train with was 2024's Mr. Olympia in men's physique, which is Ryan Terry. I would absolutely love to train with him. Seems like a really down-to-earth guy. I take a lot of inspiration from him and what it is that he does, even though he preps himself through shows. Now obviously he's a lifetime competitor of the Olympia, he hasn't got to do any other shows during the season. He's one person I've always looked at and I've always taken inspiration from. But then again, if you're then to go up a category into classic physique, I would probably say Chris Bumstead. Obviously, who wouldn't want to train with Chris Bumstead? Then if you then go up another level, the other one I'd like to train with as well is probably Samson, to be honest. What thoughts go through your head when heavy training? This is a bit of a mad one. I know a lot of people have a lot of different thoughts and practices and things that they do when they're in the gym. But for me, it's all about going in, having music full blast, blocking out any external noise, whether if I've had a good day or a shit day or anything like that, trying to block out the noise and literally just going after it. I don't necessarily think about anything. I'm more focused on the emphasis around the movements that I'm doing in the gym, rather than being like, I've got to fight these noises in my head or imagining a scenario. I know when I read through Eddie Hall's biography that he mentioned he went to a very dark place to pull what was at the time the world record deadlift. So for me personally, I can't really see anything goes through my head when I'm training, apart from just loud music, whether that be Slipknot, drum and bass, something like that, whatever it is, whatever I'm feeling on the day. What's your favorite gym session? This is an interesting one. So over the years, I've never really been a massive fan of push sessions in general, unless it involves some kind of shoulder movement. Legs is one session that I absolutely love. I will always fight to the death during a leg session. But if I was to pin it down to one, I would probably say a push session. Now that I'm seeing growth and development in my chest and in my shoulders and that sort of thing, it's kind of spurring me on a lot more, and I'm actually enjoying a push session even more. So I would probably say my favorite session of the week is probably push. What's the best thing about prep and the worst? It's all shit. Prep is honestly awful. I would probably say the best thing about prep is obviously getting into the shape of your life. It's the most amazing feeling, it's the most amazing thing. Pushing through numerous mental barriers, physical barriers, the stress, the strain, the mood swings, everything else that comes into effect with prep. I would probably say I actually enjoy everything for the most part. The worst thing I'd probably say is sorting out a shitload of supplements in terms of like protein and all the health supplements that I take and everything else that's on the side. That to me is probably the most tedious part. It's all the little tiny bits in between. And then I guess I could add to that a little bit as well. The worst bit as well was probably like the mental battle, like when the suffering really sets in, because you have no care or consideration for people. You're almost dead inside is the only way that I can explain it. Like the emotion's not really there and there's something lacking. What's more important for fat loss, food or exercise? So I've always been a massive believer that food is always going to be the key driver of fat loss. Whether if you've got a sedentary job, whether if you're busy, or if your output's not particularly high. So kind of falling in between those categories. Yes, exercise is important, but the one thing that I always do with new clients is I set them up a relatively short or very like shallow calorie deficit by say 100, maybe 200 calories. And then I just increase their expenditure by setting them a step target or adding on cardio onto the end of their gym sessions. More often than not, just adding in that expenditure is going to be enough to keep people on that downward trajectory of fat loss. Obviously, fat loss isn't like a straight downward trend. It'd be nice if it was. You're always going to hit the peaks and troughs. But I would say that prioritizing food and exercise are both going to play into your hands and make dieting a lot easier. How do you cope on hard prep days? Looking mega. Nice one. Thank you for the comment. On hard prep days, I've picked up a lot of quirks and like weird things that I do to get round. This thing that is always glued to my hand is obviously a vape. Everyone's seen them. This is honestly one thing that I literally chain all day. Not that it necessarily has any sort of like mental benefits or anything like that. It's just one thing that kind of settles me down a little bit. Or I may well put on some music, whether if I'm in the kitchen prepping food, I might stick the radio on, or I might put something over the speaker. And sometimes I generally like take myself out of a situation. So if I'm at home, I'm feeling aggy and that sort of thing, I generally remove myself from a situation and I'll go and do something else. Or like once I've got all the non-negotiables ticked off in terms of food, in terms of water, in terms of my steps, my cardio, my training, later in the evening, I then prioritize a bit of downtime, which generally can be about half an hour to an hour before I go to bed. So that's generally how I cope on the shit days, I guess you could say. How important is food around training? What else should I be thinking about? Food is incredibly important around training. One thing that I've done since I started bodybuilding, this also goes for say like general population people as well, is that prioritizing food before you go to the gym and after you go to the gym is what's gonna create I guess you could say the biggest amount of hypertrophy in terms of like gaining muscle or getting lean and that sort of thing. I've always said that before you go to the gym, you want to have a decent meal that's dense in protein and carbs and has a very minute amount of fat in there, because the fat is going to slow down the release of carbs, meaning that it won't necessarily come into effect very quickly for when you go to the gym. That's something you should consume, I would say at least maybe an hour to an hour and a half before you go to the gym, just to make sure that it's digested, it's settled. You're not going to go to the gym, you're not going to be chundering in a bin. We've all fucking been there. And then also post-workout as well. On both meals, pre and post-workout, you want to be focusing on relatively simple carbs, which is why you see people eating cream with rice before you go to the gym, because it's fast acting, fast digesting, it tastes fucking good, and it's effective, it works. People have been using it for years. Post-workout, this is why you see people eating, as much as I don't agree with it, squares, bars and cereal are things that people eat post-workout because they're fast-acting carbohydrates. The other thing you can go for as well is a meal dense in chicken, jasmine rice, because jasmine rice is a fast-acting, easy absorbing carbohydrate, and then even down to pineapple, because you've got the sugars in there as well, so you're not going to go hypo like I've done numerous times this prep post-workout. So that's what you want to kind of focus that onto. In terms of when you're at the gym, is I would honestly say like just water while you're training if your intention isn't to build muscle or bodybuild, or if it is your intention, then you kind of want to be looking at something that's going to contain something like cyclic dextrin, essential aminos, glutamine, creatine and salt. It's essentially a build-up of electrolytes, carbohydrates. You've also got the proteins in there from the aminos, which are going to help through intra-workout recovery. The creatine is going to also boost the function of the muscle, and you know, it's something nice to drink whilst you're in there at the same time. So that's what I would look at before, during and after training. Not bodybuilding, but how does being competitive affect life? The thing with being competitive is that it's always on my mind that I want to do well and I want to excel in this field and do as well as I possibly can. Once I get my teeth into something, I'm like a dog with a bone. I just don't let go, I don't let it drop until I kind of get to where I want to be. This has always been the case, even like back in the days where I used to go fishing. I was either fully immersed in it or I wouldn't do it at all, and it's the same here. I couldn't sit on either side of the fence. So I would say being competitive, it's always that kind of mental battle of like, every day you want to be that one step closer every single day. And that's literally how you've got to imagine it, is if you're kind of walking from the start point to the finish line, because there's no way you're going to be able to run through a prep because you'll completely fuck it up. So being competitive affects life in the sense that it's always on my mind. It's something that occurs every single day that I wake up, when I'm at the gym, when I'm posing, this, that and the other. It has a massive effect because it's something I'm always thinking about. On days that go to shit, how do you prioritize what you need to do? I will honestly say that prepping your food ahead is going to be the biggest saver of time, and it will also be the one thing that is going to save you fucking up your diet, your prep, your growth phase, your lifestyle change, whatever it is you're looking for. Being prepared in advance, yes, being a Tupperware wanker, as a lot of people put it, eating out of Tupperware isn't the end of the world. It's something I've done for years. I've got no issues being sat in a cinema eating chicken and rice or cream of rice or a bowl of oats, or sitting in a car park, sitting in the park eating those foods, because yes, it's one of them things where it's not classed as socially acceptable to eat healthy. If I was sat in a park eating a big bowl of rice, chicken, pineapple, that sort of thing, people would be like, oh, what the fuck are you eating that for? But then nobody would sort of turn their nose up if you're sat there eating a donut, or if you're sat there eating a kebab or a McDonald's. So to me, you've got to kind of be like shameless with it as well. So going back to the question on days that go to shit, I just try and catch up as much as I possibly can. I don't force things too much. And even more so when I'm on prep, I make sure that all my food is ready to go. So I'm not waking up in the morning thinking, oh fuck, I've not cooked this meal, or I need to make that, or I need to do that. It's the biggest saver of time by an absolute country mile. How do you relax? What do you do on rest days? So because of the nature of my job, I'm a scaffolder, it means that my days are generally quite strenuous. So yes, I get rest days, days off from the gym, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I get to sit down and do nothing for the full day, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to. Ways I generally unwind on a rest day, on a Sunday is probably the prime example, is myself and him will get out first thing in the morning, we'll take the dog out for a walk, we'll come back, we'll have our breakfast, then we'll go around to Costa, we'll sit in Costa and do some work for 2 or 3 hours, have a coffee, spend a bit of time together. It's fucking cute, isn't it? Or as like alternative to that is when I'm at home, I generally sort of sit and watch Netflix, that sort of thing. Again, going back to a previous question, as long as all my non-negotiables are boxed off, then I have that sort of free reign to kind of sit down and chill out. What do you look for in a coach? Does it change depending whether you're going on stage? What I look for in a coach, that's an interesting one. So I guess you could kind of relate it to the situation that I'm in now. Before I joined you, and I was coaching myself through the first part of my off season, and I had some treatment from him as he's a kinetic therapist, and I said to him, like, look, I'm thinking of hiring a coach or going through prep myself. He said to me, don't. He said, you need to find somebody that you have a connection, that you can connect with on a level that's still going to get you through what it is that you want to do, and not necessarily have to either mummy you through it, or they're able to crack the whip when they need to. And trust me, he does when he needs to. So I guess you could say someone I can connect with, but then we're not so connected on a deep level that it kind of causes that divide. There is that divide between us where you've got, I consider you as a good friend, and then you also got him as a coach, and they're two very different things. We speak to each other outside of like training, that sort of thing, like friends, but then when it comes down to coaching, if he's got to crack the whip, then he has to. So that's what I look for personally. I also don't like people that kind of big note themselves on social media, or they've got a fucking huge coaching business and they're making a shitload of money, or they're mainly pushing through their top flight clients, their pros and that sort of thing, but they're not looking after anybody like myself and others like you out there that are going to be in the same stage as me. What's on your gym playlist? I've probably got the most bipolar gym playlist you could ever think of. It goes anywhere from Slipknot, System of a Down, Shine Down, Ozzy Osbourne, down to then London Electricity, Etherwood, Flowdan, Chase and Status, Dermot Kennedy, Ed Sheeran. So it's a real mix there. How my music goes on my training days purely depends on my mood and how I'm feeling. Sometimes I like the shouting music of Slipknot, then sometimes I like a little bit something a bit more fast paced. Do you have favourite meals, or are they all plain, bland and boring? So this last prep, every single meal I can honestly say that I've enjoyed. There's not one meal that I actually dread eating. I'd probably say my favourite at the moment is probably cream of rice, blueberries, dark chocolate and whey paste. That is one meal that I could eat to the death. And that's one meal that I look forward to on my high days as well, because I know that I'm going to get a decent amount. The rest of my meals aren't plain, bland, boring at all, because I season my meats. It's mainly my carbs that I put very minimal amount of seasoning on. I literally just salt them, maybe a bit of mustard and ketchup on that. Bit of a weird combination, but I actually love it. So yeah, to answer your question, my favourite meal at the moment is cream of rice, whey paste, blueberries, and at the moment I'm using Perform brownie batter cream of rice, and it's incredible. Do you limit coffee and energy drinks, or are they okay to drink? Liquid calories is a massive thing where people think, oh, you know, I'm hitting my targets, but then they're drinking full fat Coke, they're drinking full sugar, full milk coffee and that sort of thing. As prep goes on, as of from last week, I could honestly say that my coffee is literally a black Americano with a dash of milk and sugar-free syrup, and that's literally all I have, whether if that's a nice coffee or if that's a hot coffee. Down to energy drinks, if you are going to drink energy drinks, I would say yes, they're okay. They're not deemed healthy or socially acceptable. They kill you, they fuck up your stomach. The aspartame is going to give you cancer. All that shite, you can just completely ignore it, because they're not exactly healthy, but they're not particularly bad for you. So long as you stick to, say, like the White Monster, the zero sugar, they'll be absolutely fine. It's just a bit of added caffeine. You don't get a crash off them like you do with the full sugar. So I'd say yes, both coffee, not too over the top on calories, and also the low sugar Monster are very good options. Are you nervous when you go on stage? Yes, I absolutely shit my pants. It's a bit of a strange one. I would honestly say, like, the build up to the point of where I'm backstage pumping up, warming up, whatever, is probably the one stage where I'm the most nervous. That's just being truthful. When I'm actually then backstage, it's almost like that washes off. As soon as you step out on the stage under the bright lights, that massive rush of adrenaline hits you, and then it literally feels as though you're on the stage for 2 minutes and then you're back off again. That's it, done, day's over. So I can honestly say, on the build up to stepping on stage, I get nervous, but then whilst I'm on stage, I'm generally absolutely fine. You see a lot of lads that are on stage and they're posing and they're like shaking. I'm not that person. This is a good one. What are you going to do after show day? What food are you looking forward to? So my food drive obviously right now is very high, and that stems as a result of being like particularly hungry. One thing I'm looking forward to post show, I can honestly say, is probably on the drive home would be a big bowl of cream of rice, blueberries, whey paste. That's probably one thing I'd have straight away. Probably honestly say a pizza. I wouldn't mind a pizza right now. That would be the one thing that I'd absolutely love. I've been thinking about Five Guys and that sort of thing, but I want to try and think of something that's not going to fuck my stomach up. But then having said that, myself and Emma are going out for breakfast on the Monday after, and I'm looking forward to that, because then it'll be probably poached eggs on a muffin with pancakes and bacon, more than likely. Staple post-show food. Is it stressful trying to train/raise a dog when you're on prep? She's cute, by the way. Thank you. Appreciate that. It has its good days and bad days. If I'm in a bad mood, it makes it really difficult. And trying to train her when you're mad, you're being pissy, anything like that, isn't exactly the best idea. So I try and do a bit more when I'm calmer. Me and Emma generally sort of like alternate when we walk her. So if we go out first thing in the morning, Emma walks her. If we go out in the evening, then I'll walk, and we'll kind of alternate it like that. So it's not like the onus is all on one of us to take her out for a walk. So Training a dog, as you may know, especially a German Shepherd, stubborn as fuck, big personalities, they can be very stressful to train. Doing it on prep isn't particularly fun in a sense, because it means that I've got a shorter fuse, my tolerance for bullshit's a little bit lower. So yeah, I would honestly say it is tricky. But then when you get things right, like I did the other night where I was walking around the block, I had the Holty lead, which is adjustable, had it clipped over me. I was able to walk completely hands-free, and she was just happy sort of like trotting along beside me, which is dead cute. So things like that is what adds that reward in there. Would you say maintaining positivity is the hardest part of bodybuilding, as constant training, diet and cardio can take it out of you? Yes, absolutely. I would absolutely agree with this. All of those things covered in that, I would say maintaining positivity all the way through is difficult. Stress is the one destroyer of progress for anybody. If you get stressed out to fuck on prep and you're stressed out your mind all the way through, then obviously it affects the results. It can cause water retention, shit sleep and bad moods and that sort of thing. It's basically a spiral. So I have a health stack that I use before I go to bed, which basically knocks me out. I guess you could say to an extent it eradicates stress. Not completely by any means. It doesn't get rid of it, because you never will get rid of it. Unless I could fuck off to a different country, stay there, never have to come back and had a massive pot of money, then I would be happy. That would be all my stress gone. But that's not going to happen. So I would say maintaining positivity all the way through is very challenging. So that is all the questions I'm going to cover, as I'm well aware that I've been going for about 24 minutes-ish. So I'd like to, again, thank everybody for all the questions that you submitted. I'll probably do another round of this in a couple of weeks' time, probably when I've finished my show. I'll take you through everything else. I'll cover any questions that I hadn't answered now. Hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit more of an idea about me. Sorry if it was boring. You probably find me boring because apparently I've got no personality. Not right now anyway. But anyway, if you haven't seen my previous video, head back over to my page, hit the subscribe button, drop a like on this video, drop a comment on this video, and I will catch you in the next one.